The morning sun crept over the hills as Kong Pu's father tightened his straw sandals and prepared to walk to the city. The boys stood in the doorway of their mud-walled hut, watching with serious eyes. "Whatever happens, be sure to save the tablet," his father said with a weary smile. It was the only thing they had left worth keeping. Alone now, Kong Pu entered the dim hut and stood before the shelf where the wooden tablet rested in its carved case. Through the lattice screen, he could see the characters bearing his grandfather's name. Since babyhood, he had been taught that the old man's spirit lived inside this small, oblong piece of wood. He reached out one cautious finger, touched the box, and drew back, half frightened at his own daring. Nothing terrible happened. It felt just like any other piece of wood. Puzzled, the boy walked out into the little garden and set to work resetting young cabbages, just as his father had shown him. He gathered a basket of chicken feathers and tucked them around each tender root, for his father had said feathers made plants strong and healthy. All morning, he worked steadily beneath the warm sun. By afternoon, he was beginning to tire when a woman's scream split the air. Kong Pu dropped his basket and ran to the gate. Down the road, women and children scattered in every direction, and behind them came the dreaded foreign soldiers, burning houses, stealing whatever they could carry. Most village men were away at a distant market. No one had expected an attack. The boy's heart hammered, but he stood his ground. The soldiers drew nearer, house after house falling to their greed. When they reached the hut next door, Kong Pu knew the moment had come. He seized the basket of feathers, rushed inside, snatched the precious tablet from its shelf, and buried it deep among the feathers. Then he fled through the gate and down the narrow street. A soldier spotted him and shouted, "Kill the kid." Kong Pu scrambled up the hillside to an old stone monument outside the village. From there, he watched the soldiers pillage everything he had ever known. Smoke rose from the ruins of his neighbors' homes. When darkness came, he climbed down and curled at the foot of the cold stone arch. Hungry and exhausted, he placed the basket close beside him and fell into a deep sleep. How long he slept he never knew, but it was still dark when a voice woke him. Someone had called his name, faint but clear. He sat up and searched the moonlit stone columns and arch above. No one was there. He lay back, thinking it a dream, but the voice came again, thin and urgent. "Kong Pu, why don't you let me out? I can't breathe under all these feathers." In a flash, he understood. He dug into the basket, pulled out the wooden tablet, and stood on the stone base. Wonder of wonders. A tiny old man, not 6 inches tall, sat on top of the tablet, legs dangling over the edge. A long gray beard flowed from his chin, and Kong Pu knew at once that this was the living spirit of his grandfather, returned from the dead. The little man laughed. "So you thought you'd bury your old grandfather in feathers? A soft enough grave, but rather smelly." Kong Pu protested that he had only hidden the tablet to save it from the soldiers' flames. His grandfather's voice softened. "Do not be uneasy, my boy. You did the best you could for your old grandfather. Most lads would have taken to their heels and left me to burn. You saved me from a second death, far more terrible than the first." The grandfather's tiny eyes twinkled. "If you had not been brave and filial, I should not trouble to help you. But you thought only of my tablet when others would have grabbed bread or blankets. For this, I shall give back to you the home of your ancestors." Kong Pu gasped. The old man continued, "Your father disobeyed me and lost everything. But he has taught you to honor me, that I cannot forget." The boy's heart leaped, then fell. "But what of my father? If he goes away, he may die, and I could not tend his grave or burn incense at the proper season." The tiny grandfather studied him with approval. "Quite right. You love your father as well as your grandfather's tablet. I see he is sorry for his disobedience. Very well, go to sleep again, and in the morning I shall see what I can do, Doc." As the spirit spoke these final words, the little man began to shrink before the boy's eyes, growing smaller and smaller until he vanished entirely. Kong Piu stared at the empty space where his grandfather had been, then lay back beneath the stars. Could it be true? Would the old family home really be restored? The boy's mind raced with questions until weariness pulled him back into sleep. When Kong Piu next opened his eyes, morning sun was blazing full in his face. He rubbed his eyes and looked around. The basket was gone. The tablet was gone. Even a stone arch under which he had slept had vanished completely. His heart sank. He had failed to guard his grandfather's spirit. Trembling, he decided to follow the path back toward the village, hungry and utterly bewildered. He crossed the little brook where women washed clothes on rocks. He passed the mulberry tree where boys gathered leaves for silkworms. Another turn, and he would see the village. But when he rounded the corner, an amazing sight stopped him cold. Where ruins should have been, a great stone wall rose before him. The massive gate stood wide open, and a keeper rushed out crying, "The little master has come." Bewildered, the boy followed the servant through several wide courts and into a garden of flowers and strangely twisted trees. Servants in fine robes bowed low and called him the little master come home. Kong Piu reached to hide a tear in his ragged clothes, but his hand found embroidered silk. From head to foot, he was dressed like a young prince. This was his grandfather's promise made real, the home of his ancestors. In a magnificent hall, his father was waiting. "My boy, you have come back." Kong Piu cried, "I lost the tablet." A thief took it, but his father pointed to a carved table, and there stood the very tablet returned. Father and son fell to their knees and bowed 9 times to the floor, thanking